It's the Security Weekly News, and it's episode 330, which is a lot of episodes. Welcome to the week of 1 October 2023. We got Minority Report, NSA, WSFTP, Exim, Sextortion, BunnyLoader, CISA, more news, and Jason Wood on the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News.
AI, accelerated cloud adoption, and hybrid work are fundamentally shifting how business gets done. The old way of securing your people, apps, and data doesn't work and scale anymore. To stay ahead, today's organizations need to reimagine their security and networking infrastructure with a cloud-first, unified SASE architecture. Join Palo Alto Networks and leading technologists from across the globe for SASE Converge 2023, a two-day virtual experience, November 15th and 16th. Revealing how SASE powered by advanced AI can drive better security and networking outcomes. Register today at securityweekly.com/Palo Alto.
Business Security Weekly is live streamed and recorded on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Each week, we address the challenges facing CISOs through our guest interviews, including former and active CISOs. Our news segment is focused on leadership and communication to better help security leaders translate and communicate security risks into business risks. Jason Albuquerque, Ben Carr, Tyler Robinson, and others add their expertise to the conversation. I'm Matt Alderman, and I hope you search for Business Security Weekly in your favorite podcast catcher and subscribe to download our latest content.
Welcome to Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White. Well, it's October, so get ready to toot lines of pumpkin spice off skeletons' pelvic bones or whatever it is that you do with pumpkin spice. I'm not really sure. I do like pumpkin seeds, though. Those are pretty good. And boy, they used to have that hot sauce. Ooh, I like that. I don't even know what it's called, but they always had it at those restaurants in Colorado. Ooh, it was so good. Anyway, all right. The National Security Agency, which I always want to call the National Security Administration for some strange reason, but I don't know why. But anyway, the NSA is starting a security center for artificial intelligence. About time. The agency announced on Thursday that AI would be a crucial mission going forward as AI capabilities are increasingly acquired, developed, and integrated into U.S. defense and intelligence systems. General Nakasone said in a National Press Club meeting, quote, "We maintain an advantage in AI in the United States today. That AI advantage should not be taken for granted." And went on to emphasize the threat that exists from the People's Republic of China, who are working really hard on AI stuff. General Nakasone said that the center would work closely with U.S. industry, national labs, academia, and the Department of Defense, as well as international partners. General Nakasone has led the NSA since 2018 and will soon be replaced by Lieutenant General Howe. I don't know how to say the name. Sorry, Lieutenant General. Who will direct both the NSA and the U.S. Cyber Command. They're changing the structure of that. But I think it's a good idea. I mean, they're starting to address, as they implement AI in all sorts of different systems, from gunnery systems to whatever, it's going to be they need somebody to be studying that and look for probably back doors. Who knows who wrote the AI? So, could be. Well, if you're tired of hearing about MOVEit, it's not over yet. There was a new vulnerability found in the WSFTP file transfer solution, and that was revealed last week, and a proof of concept was being provided by AssetNote last week. And I know Jason's going to talk about this in more detail, so I'm not going to spend any more time on it, but just be advised that if you're using WSFTP, you may want to check some of that out for patches. 6 0-days were found in Exim mail transfer agent. Yeah, oh, great. That means that potentially more than 253,000 email servers, which are the number that you can currently find on Shodan, are out there, and they could be vulnerable. And 4 of those 6 issues do allow remote code execution. Yay. The Center for Internet Security, called CISA, said an unauthenticated attacker could install programs, view, change, or delete data, create new accounts, and so forth. It just keeps getting better. The 0 days were released last week, and so Trend Micro Zero Data Initiative advised Exim about them in June of 2022. And then they resent their advisory to Exim in May of 2023. But the developers had failed so far to patch or even offer an update on patch progress as of last week. So ZDO basically posted an advisory on the 27th of September, and then news was released on an open source security mailing list 2 days later. So last week. As of Monday, suddenly there were patches for 3 of these 6 things, but only 3. So it didn't say which 3 they had patched. The systems affected are Exim version 4.96 and prior, and CIS said the risk was high for both large and medium government agencies and enterprise businesses. Exim has been on the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog before, so if you're using Exim, well, you know what you need to do for at least 3 of those vulnerabilities. So for the other 3, you're going to want to find mitigations because you can't not expose your email server. You don't want to dawdle on this one. And so, hey, you kids, get out of my store. Don't be fooling around over there. But I mean, seriously, patch this up and or mitigate your email server if you're using Exim. BunnyLoader is a malware as a service threat that has just been discovered being advertised for sale on the cybercrime underground. And I love the cybercrime underground. I mean, it's rapidly evolving into an actual industry. I mean, it's literally just like, they've got help desks, they've got, call centers, they've got all this stuff because they're selling a product to people. And I guess the people they're selling it to want, customer service. Well, BunnyLoader provides users with functionality such as downloading and executing second-state payloads, stealing browser credentials and system info, running remote commands, key logging, clipboard capture, crypto wallet address replacement, and all kinds of really nice stuff. I'm sure their ads are like full of praise for this product. But the product is being sold for the all-time low price of $250 for a lifetime license. I was like, wow, that's really cheap. Like they probably throw in a free set of Ginsu knives or something if you buy today. But according to the developers, they have been continuously developing this since the 4th of September. That doesn't sound like they were like continuously being developed since the 4th of September. I was like, well, that wasn't that long ago. They released updates to the product on the 15th of September and the 27th of September to repair issues with the command and control service, along with they found some SQL injection flaws. I'm like, wow. The Exim people hadn't released patches in more than a year. These guys are releasing patches in days? So they released the thing on the 4th of September, and 11 days later they got patches like a video game company. Well, so... does CISA put malware on the KEV, on the known exploited vulnerabilities list? I don't know. I mean, that day may be coming, right? The CISA is saying, well, yeah, they have known exploited vulnerabilities in this piece of malware, so don't buy it because it's a ripoff. But the author of the software is someone called Player Bunny, who said the key selling point was the fileless loading feature that makes it difficult for the antivirus to remove. It's not me. That was them saying that. Antiviri. It made it difficult, of course, if it's fileless, because most of the antiviral stuff that we have today is, of course, signature-based. The tool sets up persistence via a Windows registry change, so that causes it to reload every time. And then it performs sandbox and virtual machine checks before it begins its operations, and immediately it uploads system info and all this kind of stuff, phone home kind of thing. There's a lot of details in the article about this product, including how it works and a lot of code. So if you're interested in these kind of products, this is a really great article to review. Chinese hackers stole tens of thousands of emails from the United States State Department after they breached Microsoft's cloud-based Exchange email platform back in May. The State Department, this is in the United States, the Secretary of State is the head of the State Department, and they're responsible for, internal stuff. The State Department disclosed that attackers stole at least 60,000 emails from Outlook accounts belonging to State Department officials stationed in East Asia, the Pacific, and Europe, and that was reported by Reuters. The attackers also managed to get a listing of all the State Department's email accounts, which is probably a worse thing, because now when you get an email from hillary.clinton@state.gov or whatever it is, people probably fall for that. Hi, I'm Hillary Clinton, and I'd like you to click this link to download a new version of Chrome. Yeah, that kind of thing. But anyway, the report was confirmed by the State Department last week. The attacks were leaked to a group called Storm 0558, which is a spy and espionage group that is associated with China. According to Microsoft, the group first obtained a consumer signing key from a Windows crash dump after they had compromised the corporate account of a Microsoft engineer, which of course enabled the access to the government accounts. So probably started with phishing as ever, or some kind of phishing type thing. Then they were able to get the key, and they used the key, of course, then to do whatever they want to do. Microsoft has since, of course, revoked the stolen signing key and found no additional instance of unauthorized access using the same method. After pressure from CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency in the United States, Microsoft has also agreed to broaden access to cloud logging data. Now, if you don't recall this story, we did this, it was earlier this year, and there was a big row about people that have been compromised in these email issues, and they could not see their own logging files because you had to pay a premium fee to get access to your own logs. I'm like, really? And of course, I was outraged by that then. I'm outraged by it now. But Microsoft has since made that available to people without them having to pay for higher tier of service. But this, if you are at the State Department or anybody else, if you get emails from the State Department, you may want to be careful because obviously getting all these email addresses, these valid email addresses, is going to allow more phishing attacks using this same information. So if you see something from the State Department or from Hillary Clinton, although she's not the Secretary of State anymore, but if you see something from the State Department, watch out. Well, in the United States, October is a month of pumpkins, horror movies, Halloween, pumpkin spice, and also it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I think it's fitting that it's in a month full of horror. You know, I mean, because cybersecurity is kind of full of horror, but this is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And October was first designated as Cybersecurity Awareness Month way back in 2004. And I did not realize that it had been around that long. I mean, in 2004, cybersecurity was, basically, I don't know, just turn the thing off. We'll do it the old way. I mean, and as my father cranks his manual adding machine on the desk. But apparently, it is true that it started in 2004. And this month, CISA introduced the Secure Our World initiative. As a part of this, CISA is encouraging small to medium-sized businesses, individuals, and families to use strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, be wary of unsolicited messages, whether they're from Hillary Clinton or not, and report all those messages, and keep your software updated. I mean, none of that's news to any of us, but it is good news to pass along to your friends, family, and small businesses and medium businesses. I mean, we see large companies focusing on this stuff, but there's a real neglect of this in a lot of smaller and mid-sized businesses who just can't afford to hire me. And I mean, not to mention when Great Aunt Ida sends all her money that you were supposed to inherit to this nice man from Nigeria. I mean, all that stuff, of course, is not reflected in small and mid-sized businesses. You see this all the time where you've got people calling you saying, hey, I'm a startup. What is this whole thing about ransomware? And you're going, oh, geez. But in addition to the Secure Our World program, CISA is also partnering with the National Cybersecurity Alliance to provide resources and messaging with guides, infographics, templates, and graphic resources. Not sure what graphic resources is, but it sounds dirty. But, I mean, I remember talking with some U.S. senators a long time ago saying that you need more readily available free resources for small and mid-sized companies because they are not going to go out. You can tell them all day long to hire people, but they're not going to do that. So making some of these resources available to them. And I know some of you think this stuff is lame, but at least it's something. It would be great if we had better resources for this, but the police dealt with this all the time. The computer crimes unit, had people calling in and saying, we don't know what happened, but we think somebody's in our systems. What should we do? And they have no resources at all. And yet they're all using this thing called the interweb. So watch out. Well, I included this last story here because it's often in this spot, I put stories that you can distribute to your people, your family, your employees, or whatever. That you don't need to rewrite and translate. This was, I had definite involvement in some cases that looked like this, but thousands of teen boys are currently being extorted in sexting scams. Now, having been a teen boy at some point in the distant past, I get it. I mean, basically what happens is said teen boy gets a message from an alleged hot person who very likely provides a nude photo of themselves, even if it's really a 67-year-old guy from Cleveland named Sid. But, your heart's desire. Now, in my days, this was a Playboy centerfold your best friend stole from his uncle's closet, so you couldn't really reply to this, but you were definitely taken with the whole thing. But in the all-new interactive world, the hot person asks said teen boy, who has now seen nude of said hot person, to respond in kind with a nude photo of themselves. And apparently they were, saying, "Be sure I can see your face." Now, grumpy old paranoid me, who never gets asked for nudes anyway, says, right. And I would likely respond with a link to a phishing site that I built myself. But teen boys, I'm sorry. Come on. It's like offering cocaine to a rock star. They're not going to turn that down. So they do it. Then, of course, the hot person immediately demands payment, or they will send the nude photo the teen boy just sent them to everyone in the person's contact list, friends, family, your local minister, all those kind of fun things. Now, some of the reported cases refused and nothing happened, but some of them refused and something did happen. One of the other things the article talks about a lot was that any number of these people had committed suicide. Really, really bad. It is a great article you can distribute, but the basic guidance is don't pay, because paying isn't going to help, and they may send the pictures anyway. I did a case where the person would demand money, and then they would send the pictures anyway. It didn't matter. But basically the guidance is don't pay them, report the account, block the account in that order, and then stop sending nudes to anyone. I understand it's difficult. You're a teen boy, hot person asks you for nudes. Hey, what are you going to do? But listen, you got to stop doing this, and you need to talk to your people about doing this, because this probably is going to extend into other types of extortion. I hate to tell you this, but teen boys are bad, but so are corporate executives. And, I would say they're going to start falling for this stuff just as fast, so be careful. It is very serious. And I did a case like this years ago. It was devastating for the people involved. It was just brutal on their whole family, and and there was almost nothing they could do. Well, a master regurgitator. He once held a live snapping turtle in his esophagus for 2 hours before springing this surprise on President Gerald R. Ford at a state dinner. Please welcome Jason Wood.
Hey, everybody. So just to add on to Doug's last story there, I've known kids who've been caught up in that too, and it is a terribly traumatic thing for them. So this is something to check out. It's no good. As Doug already alluded to, Progress Software, Move It Part 2, or otherwise known as WSFTP, which took me back to my early days as a systems administrator setting that up. 2023 has not been a fun year for Progress Software, the maker of both of these applications. They've endured a long run of vulnerabilities being exploited by ransomware operations with the Move It Transfer app, and now Rapid7 is just reporting on Saturday that they are seeing exploitation of a vulnerability or patches for some vulnerabilities that were released last week for WSFTP. Though it does appear to be, at this point, limited scope in its exploitation. So far. The latest saga begins with Progress Software announcing 8 vulnerabilities last Wednesday, one of which was a .NET deserialization vulnerability that allows an unauthenticated attacker to execute operating system commands on the host, and that weighed in with a whopping 10 on CVSS. So that's about as bad as it can get as far as ratings go. But their second one, or one of the other ones in there, tried really hard, and it only came in at 9.9. 3 others came in the 8.3 to 8.2 range, so those were also pretty gnarly, involving cross-site scripting and SQL injection, which actually surprised me a little bit because I used to install this and it was just a Windows service with an executable and stuff. Well, now it's running underneath IIS and doing some other stuff. So obviously it's evolved quite a bit over the years. According to the Register on Friday last week, Progress Software reported that, hey, yep, this is bad. You should patch it, but don't worry, there's no sign of exploitation. That lasted until the next day. So yeah, Rapid7 reports the next day that sure enough, they're seeing exploitation. They released a blog post saying that, yep, proof of concept code had been released on the 29th, Friday. And then the next day, that's when the exploitation starts getting picked up. Now, Rapid7 did release a number of the commands that are related to the exploitation they were seeing. Starts out with IIS, the IIS worker process, as the grandparent, and then several, processes down. You see the .NET tools for compiling code, executing. I'm assuming that's the deserialization component of it. And then you've got OS commands dropping out of command.exe to execute reg server 32 to load a malicious DLL, and a PowerShell command that actually downloads the DLL just a step before that, which interestingly enough, the URL that they use to download it is going over exiting to port 3389, which is for RDP. So, one way, at least in that particular command, is make sure you're filtering things properly on the egress. Yeah, so they've got some stuff here for us to look for as far as signs of it being exploited. At least with the limited activity that Rapid7 has seen, this could change very much. At this point, we don't have any information about who is doing the exploitation. Doesn't appear to be ransomware related at this point. Rapid7 was pointing to a single Burp Suite collaborator domain being used in one of their commands that they were running, which they said indicated that it was probably just a single person at this point doing it. Then the attacker was using Sliver, which was a post-exploitation by Bishop Fox, to execute the malicious DLL the malicious DLL came from Sliver. That was executed on the host. So that's how they got their command and control going. Now, I have several thoughts on this. The article doesn't have a ton of information, but there were still things that caught my attention. One was just the kind of, there are a lot of software being used in this that we see as part of legitimate security testing and whatnot. So somebody's definitely using stuff that folks use through, at work. But also the part that I kind of zeroed in on was Progress Software stating they had seen no signs of exploitation. And to that, I would say yet. Whenever you see statements like this, and I get it, people are trying to soften the blow of the news. They feel, they're trying to make it seem like it's not as bad as it is because it reflects poorly on the company, and they've got customers asking, have you seen anybody exploiting it yet, or anything like that? But really the question and the response of no, we haven't seen anything yet, leads to more problems, I think. Basically what you've got here is, folks who are some companies are going to look at this and say, well, it's not being exploited. That gives us more time to work on getting the patch out there, so we can take this easy a little bit. But, it just depends on when somebody picks this up. And as Doug pointed out with the ransomware operations, I mean, yeah, they are an industry. These are businesses. They just happen to deal with illegal stuff, but they're very much businesses that are very quick to try and pick up on this stuff and use it. So whenever you see something like this where we've got remote code execution, whether authenticated or unauthenticated, that's just like it's time to dive all over this. I would perhaps rather have seen a statement like, we haven't heard of exploitation yet, but this could change at a moment's notice. So we strongly recommend you patch as soon as you can. Basically saying, get off your duffs, folks. We can't wait necessarily on this one because this is bad news. In this case, we went from patch on day 0 or being released on day 0, proof of concept on day 2, and exploitation on day 3. And while Rapid7's telemetry only has a single actor, proof of concept code's out there, somebody else could pick it up very quickly and start using it. The criminal groups have absolutely shown they can move very quickly to execute on this. They've got lots of incentive to do it. I think I read one thing with the Clop ransomware payouts related to Move It. Sexploitation, payouts were averaging like $750,000. So there's a lot of money on the line here. So on a potential positive, I guess, maybe kind of, it's dropping out of IIS. IIS worker processes executing. This should be a limited privileged local user account, but then they establish command and control on the host, and from there they're going to be looking at getting additional privileges and then try and get lateral movement or credentials so that they can move around. Plus, it's just dealing with data transfer, so who knows what's being transferred in this, and we may have lots of data that we don't want picked up right away. So it's bad news. I think so. I expect that you'll hear more from us on this one because progress is already in these groups' crosshairs, and since we've seen that updating software is just really, really hard, and we still can't figure this out entirely after decades. So we're going to see this being exploited for a while. So we may have a follow-up next week. Now, your podcaster is one of the finest pros this program has ever produced. His exploits are legendary. And what he has to teach you may mean the difference between a weekend data breach or a drink on the beach. I give you Dr. Doug White, call sign Mr. Cat.
Yay, Mr. Cat. Aw, we miss Mr. Cat. Thank you. Yeah, drink on the beach sounds good, but yeah, I guess breaching could be something else. All right. Thanks, Jason. And finally, Philip K. Dick wrote a book called Minority Report, which basically had this whole weird thing where crime could be foreseen by people with precognition, and then you could get arrested in advance of doing something. Pretty paranoid. I mean, that's Philip K. Dick, right? I mean, his whole thing was about dystopia and all this, and it's a pretty creepy thought. But it started to seep into the real world now without the precognition part. But predictive policing is a term that I actually wasn't that familiar with when I saw this article. But predictive policing is a law enforcement field where they use data collection and analytics to try and predict where crime will occur. Now, this isn't the same thing as Philip K. Dick because we don't have any precognition or any of this kind of stuff. And it's basically a pretty smart sounding thing. I mean, it's basically if you realize that all the violence is in Mott Haven, so you maybe put some more officers in Mott Haven, only it's a little more specific than that because they're trying to say, well, this is probably where a murder is going to occur. Now, so obviously Mott Haven is somewhat dangerous and you probably don't want to go down there wandering around at night. But regardless, this new investigation came out by the Markup and Wired showed that predictive policing in Plainfield, New Jersey, anyway, was a giant, expensive mess, quote. And they said it produced, quote, little helpful results. Now, the product they were using was called Geolytica, and that had apparently been called PredPol until 2 years ago. But Geopolitica made 23,631 predictions over the 10-month period they were doing the study, and the software predicted where crimes would occur with less than 0.5% success rate. I mean, wow! Like you could have just flipped a coin, or thrown darts at a board or whatever. I mean, I like the idea. But it's probably, nowhere near as good if you just ask the local patrol officers, like, where's crime going on? And maybe we should put some more cars down there. That's always the problem, right? They don't ever have enough people, and they say, well, we need to have people here, we need to have people over there. But at least they're trying. But, I assure those local officers can tell you where the crime's probably going to occur. But, who knows? Apparently this thing wasn't very good at it. Well, I will be live in Miami Beach, Florida with Frank and Sammy and all the gang down at the bar at the Millennium Alliance CISO Con on the 10th and 11th next week. If you're going to be there, please come by and say hi or, we'll have a drink or whatever. But that's the news. Thanks, Jason Wood, and I will see you Friday.